Let's talk addictive behavior in trading. If you have ever had the experience of having an urgency to act, to jump into a trade, you've actually experienced an addiction. Okay? If you've ever been there and you see that setup and you really know you need to get in, it's a valid setup and everything's right, but yet there's no, I'm scared. You have also experienced the process of an addiction. First of all, let's clarify, is that your brain creates habits, okay? And that habit, once it's established, runs as pathway. It's a neural pathway that is automatically triggered without thought. It never passes the brain, the cognitive brain. So you're looking at it and you're going, okay, I begin to see this. And ultimately, what an addiction really is a habit gone bad and destructive. You want habits. The thing is you cannot imagine what you would be involved in if you were having to solve every problem that the world's ever known every time there is a challenge coming toward you. The brain takes that out of thinking domain, builds a pattern, a habit that triggers that, okay? The deal with you is much like what Wilt Chamberlain said so many years ago. He says, be careful of the habits that you form, because once formed, they start creating you, okay? Now, what we're looking at is saying, now, let's apply this to trading and take this technology that basically the recovery movement can really help us to understand what's happening to us, okay? So here's the deal, is what we know is that an addiction, what I'm calling an addiction, what a lot of people call a lot of the behaviors in trading, the negative behaviors, an addiction. What we really know is that they are a habit, okay, that has gone bad. And particularly, it is a habit that no longer has an internal source of reward. That would be the dopamine reward system, okay? It has, in fact, found an outside way of getting to that. And it may be, and it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be things, it could be too much coffee trying to, be that tuned up guy. But the thing is what it really boils down to is that you're coming to a moment of where you're allowing the habit to take over process. And what we want to do is say, how does this happen? Okay, first of all, let's just say you're in a trade or actually fishing for a trade and you're hanging out, nothing's going on, you're not bored yet, all that stuff. You are at a place of homeostasis. That's where your organism, that's where your brain wants to be. It's safe, it's chilled, all that kind of stuff. And then what happens, let's just say that however you define looking for a trade, all of a sudden there's signals showing that there is an approaching trade potentially. And out of that, all of a sudden there's an alert. And the question really believes is, what do you believe about yourself and the ability to engage uncertainty? Do you believe it is about you, or do you believe it is about your performance? That's the big deal. So what we've done is we have moved from where we know that, it's just information coming in that the brain now starts interpreting. And back with our example, we're going to this moment where nothing is happening and suddenly something shows up. You come to more of an alert. The question is, does that alert produce stress? Yes, it does. The good stress that we would like to see is something called eustress. That's building up for performance, okay? Getting yourself really mindful and ready for it. Distress is when you start adding a piece that says, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Oh my God, I need to jump into this trade. I need to take it before it gets away. Or God, something, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I lose? Okay, therefore, what happens is you start having a craving. This is biological, okay, for relief from that symptom. And it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. And that craving reaches a point of where you have an urgency to act. Okay, you have this urgency to act. And at that particular moment, that urgency, and And that urgency to act may be this. Doesn't matter. What we're looking at is now we see a trained habit showing up that is beyond your ability to think through it. It's happening automatically. And suddenly it reaches the moment of it has this urgency to act. And all of a sudden you move in, you activate the dopamine reward system. That's where the addiction is. The dopamine reward system is rewarding your action that solves a short-term problem. And it gives you a boost of a chemical that is very similar to cocaine. Okay? That's what it is. And all of a sudden you realize that anytime I'm in this situation, the habit is going to be that it triggers and it goes toward that dopamine reward system and it wants to feel good or escape danger. Okay? And then that's called relief. You take action and there's a moment of relief. Even if you're, say, not getting in a trade and it just passes you by, but you think, oh my God, there's a whew. There's relief because you've passed the danger. And then it kicks in going, oh my God, there's a crash and you go, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? This is crazy. All of a sudden that's where the revenge trading comes and stuff like that. The habit is out of control. It is in a full addictive mode at this particular time. And then the crash happens and all of a sudden you have relapse. Now, I want you to look at it. Take a look at your trades and start realizing that the addiction model can apply right there. It's actually a very good way of understanding. It isn't really about, it's not your fault. What happens is that you have not been a very good manager of the formation of habits. And what we're asking you to do is to learn to become a better purveyor or better steward of the habits that you form about how you engage uncertainty. If you leave it to your caveman brain, remember that's back anywhere between 1 million and 5 million years ago, it's going to choose a totally different thing because it was a very dangerous world that he lived in. When you're trading, there are no lions, tigers, and bears, really. We have them imagined we might take a loss. Oh my God, oh my God. But it's those things that you've been trying to avoid and the habits have taken over. And yet, to become a successful trader, you have to learn to override what has become habit, what has become addiction. Because the habit is no longer serving you. Therefore, it's an addiction. Remember, it's a habit-forming situation. Just the way smoke is and stuff like that. What I want to do is give you an example of this. I have a client. When I first met him, he was wildly inconsistent. And in the first 6 to 7 weeks, he just went on a rampage and he was knocking it out. And a lot of it, I think, was really trying to please me. But also what he did is he actually was doing the kind of situations. He was learning how to breathe. He was learning how to observe. He was learning how to calm down. He was learning to do all that stuff. And he had some energy, okay? And then about the 8th or 9th session in our program, he started blowing up stuff. He would blow up $50,000 in a day and all this stuff. And what he had been an alcoholic and he's in recovery and stuff like that and doesn't drink. However, once you're an addict in the recovery movement, they will say that you're always an addict. You just find another addiction, polyaddiction. And what he had found is cigars. If he had a bad day, bad 2 or 3 trades, he would take everything down, but then he would go to the cigar bar. And 5 or 6 cigars later, he's on a nicotine high. He's chilled out. And all of a sudden you're realizing he is actually following a new addiction pathway. What we've done is we've found some people to hold him accountable. He's going to AA, not because he's an alcoholic, because he has an addiction to guess what? That cigar. And he's working a thing, and what he's done is he's built a system where he's getting his exercise. That's the calming that the nicotine we used to be doing. He can burn all that stress chemistry out of his body through exercise. And what he's done is he's found a really great place. But again, he's got his friends at his back looking for the signs of him going off the rails. And now if he starts thinking about going to the cigar bar, he has to get through several people to get there. He has time to be able to re-regulate himself, getting back into a great mind. Even if that means just getting up and start doing a lot of exercise, burning out that chemistry, or just simply walking away from trading and starting over the next day. In that time, he has had really good trading. He's taken some losses, but they were good losses. They were trades he needed to be in. They just didn't work out. And he sees that as success. He sees, oh my God, this is exactly what I need to do. I continue to do this and I start having profitable months. And that's what he's doing. But he embraced the addiction model. Now, he came by it honestly, okay? He did have an addiction problem. And he's using it now to solidify his trading mind. This is what I'm asking of you. Whether or not it's caffeine, whether or not it's tobacco, whether or not it's alcohol, whether or not it's drugs, whether or not it's an obsessive compulsive thing to just distract yourself away. I'm asking you to look at those elements and start noticing the movement from homeostasis to relapse and recognizing that they match up very well with the triggering of an emotion that I usually talk about. So I want you to take a look at your trading, okay, and start really identifying, how do these factors apply to me? And remember, the recovery groups, they really know how to do this. They've had more than enough experience. So take a look at it. And if you need help, I would encourage you to continue watching these videos. You can go to my website and start taking a look at the extensive stuff there, including the educational opportunities of workshops and individual work with me. Because ultimately, what you're going to have to do, as Wilt Chamberlain said, you're going to have to manufacture your own habits, okay? Because you know consciously that those habits are going to drive the creation of your world, okay? And you're going to have to face habit-forming situations and choose a different pathway to burn that chemistry and to use it so that you maintain the trader's state of mind that's rooted in discipline, courage, self-soothing, self-compassion, and the ability to think clearly. If you move past that, your addiction is in control. So look at it, friends, and take care, and have a great life. Take care.